Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with the Pig Site, and today we're here with Dr. Dave Baumert. He is a senior technical services veterinarian with Zoetis Pork. Thanks for being with us today, Dave.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Very good, and we're here at World Pork Expo, having a busy show, and we want to talk a little bit about MHP. So I'm going to dive right into my questions here because we have a lot of ground to cover.
Sure.
As MHP is one of those bigger issues that I know lots of hog producers deal with. So let's dive right in. What should a producer be thinking about when he or she determines which MHP intervention, elimination, or control is most feasible for their operation?
Well, for a producer, choosing between an elimination or a control program is certainly an important choice because they need to be sure that they pick a program that actually fits their operation, fits their business profile.
Right.
For example, an elimination program will give you the fastest, most dramatic return in terms of health for both the sow herd and the downstream pig flow, but it also requires a lot more attention to detail.
Right.
When I talk to producers about making the decision between an elimination or a control program, there's 6 components that I like to have them talk through. The first 3 of those have to deal with the farm itself and location. We talk about things like, does the farm have the right geography or at least a solid biosecurity program where they think that they can stay MHP negative after an elimination program? We want to make sure that they have a supply of Mycoplasma negative gilts available after the elimination program. And of course, we want to make sure that they have a program for pig placement so that we can keep their MHP, their Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae negative pigs in a flow that has only Mycoplasma negative pigs. The other 3 components I like to talk to a producer about are more related to the finances or the actual business operations of the system itself. Those questions would revolve around things like, do they have the financial ability to manage a premium antibiotic program? And if not, if that cost is a hurdle, then are they willing to go with a lesser antibiotic program and possibly accept lesser success rates?
Right.
We also want to know if they can withstand the loss of piglet production, because invariably in an elimination program, an MHP elimination program, there will be at least a temporary loss of piglet production. And then finally, we're going to want to go ahead and ask those producers if they have we'll call it the concentration or the ability to concentrate on MHP during the extent of this elimination program, if that's where they're going to head.
Very good. It's a lot to take in. You really have to think the whole process through, right?
All 6 of those components all play into making the right decision, making the decision for what's best for their individual program.
Very good, very good. You mentioned gilt availability. Can you tell us a little bit more about that aspect of the decision-making process?
Certainly. Having negative gilts, specifically MHP negative gilts available after the elimination program is critical, because the last thing we want to do is reinfect a herd because we've got Mycoplasma positive gilts coming back in. If a producer is raising their own gilts, they need to recognize that they will not have breeding age gilts available until 6 months after the elimination program. It'll take them that long to grow their own gilts to breeding age. And that 6 months will play into how long it will then take them to return their breeding herd to a proper herd parity distribution. If, on the other hand, the producers are going to be purchasing gilts, they will have those gilts available sooner after the elimination ends, but they also need to have some discussion ahead of time. Those producers that are purchasing or planning to purchase negative gilts need to talk to their gilt supplier, their breeding stock supplier, and make sure everyone's on the same page in terms of the number of gilts and the time frame for bringing those gilts in. Because again, we want to return the breeding herd to a proper parity distribution as efficiently as possible. And the other comment about a producer who's buying gilts, replacement gilts afterwards, we want to make sure that their breeding stock supplier has a testing or monitoring program in place so that the producer is confident that he's truly getting MHP negative gilts. Again, we don't want to deliver MHP back into a herd that we just went through through an elimination process with.
Right, you don't want to have to start all over again.
Certainly not.
Right, very good. What about pig placement and lost piglet production? You've mentioned that a little bit, but dive into that a little deeper.
Sure. So the 2 areas in terms of the piglets themselves. For piglet placement, it seems intuitive that If you've accomplished the goal of producing MHP, Mycoplasma, hyopneumoniae, negative piglets, you would think that it's intuitive that we need to place these pigs carefully. But again, I insist that producers have a discussion so that everyone from the logistics person who's scheduling nursery or weaner finish placements, the vaccination crews, all of the field managers, everyone needs to know where the negative piglets are going relative to where the positive MHP positive piglets have been placed in the past. We don't want our older MHP positive pigs to come back and reinfect our negative pigs.
Very good. And lost piglet production, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, invariably, if our producers think through it, between normal sow mortality and culling processes, most sow herds will lose about 4% of their inventory on a monthly basis. And typically that's replaced by gilts on a regular basis. But in an MHP elimination program, if that's what the producer feels is right for them, in an MHP elimination program, we have a herd closure period where new gilts are not coming into the farm.
Right.
And so even with a reduced rate of culling, we're still going to end up with about 20% fewer sows in inventory at the end of our herd closure period. That decrease in sow inventory is going to run parallel with obviously a decrease in piglet production.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that the production system or the producer understands that there will be at least a temporary loss of piglet production and that they plan to manage that accordingly.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of like a gap, in other words, for production.
There will be a gap in the number of pigs they produced, and if they have contracts with a packer that needs to supply X number of pigs on a regular basis, then we will make sure the producer thinks through that ahead of time and makes some adjustment for that.
Very good. As you said, you have to think about which path you want to go down, right? Elimination or control. So tell us more about the financial implication for both interventions. We just kind of touched on that.
Sure. So financial implications, whether a person goes down a elimination plan or a control intervention, either one of those will likely reduce the $2 to $5 impact per pig that mycoplasma causes, or if you want to measure it a different way, $50 to $125 per sow on an annual basis. Either one of those programs will eliminate or at least significantly reduce that tax on having to deal with mycoplasma. The elimination program, though, does have a bigger demand, a financial demand up front, but the advantage is it's a one-and-done program.
Right.
If the producer chooses to go with a control program, the financial impact is not as significant up front, but we need to recognize that a control program is ongoing.
Right.
Every group of gilts that comes through the gilt developer unit needs to go through an exposure and stabilization and recovery process so that they stop shedding mycoplasma before they get to the farrowing crate. But it will be every group of gilts, month after month. It's a long-term program. So.
Right. It's kind of a long game, right?
Yep.
It's a different approach. Very good. Which intervention is more typically utilized today, and has this changed over time, and why?
Well, historically, just a little bit on mycoplasma elimination. About 10 years ago, the industry became more excited about mycoplasma elimination. We saw the opportunity to completely eliminate at least one of the big three respiratory pathogens that our sow herds have to deal with. Then more recently, as PRRS became a more common issue, as sow farms become infected with PRRS virus, producers saw the opportunity to take a PRRS elimination program and integrate a mycoplasma elimination program with that.
Right.
So now we're able to eliminate two major pathogens with one, and so that bonus has really pushed the industry towards more mycoplasma elimination as opposed to just control. So I would say in the long run, most producers see the benefit of a double disease elimination as very, very attractive. So the elimination programs, I think, will continue to outnumber the control programs in the future.
Very good. And you just think about an outbreak occurs and the chaos that can cause, right?
Yes.
And to think elimination just sounds so appealing, but it is a process, right?
Yes,
right.
it
That's
is.
what we've been talking about. So, and our last question is, how does the MHP Guardian program help a producer through this phase of the process?
Well, so MHP Guardian is a program that Zoetis has developed and then presented to the swine industry recently, and it consists of 4 steps. And specifically to the question of is it elimination or is it control? Which one fits the customer's profile better? Specifically to that question, so that's step number 2 in the 4-step MHP Guardian program. That step number 2 goes into much more detail on these 6 components that we've talked about today. Not only listing the components, but describing them in detail so that as Zoetis, either our tech service veterinary team or our pork production specialist team, as we work with producers and their veterinarians, everyone has what we consider a better informed ability to make a decision. We're going to head producers down the elimination or control program as to what fits them better. And our MHP Guardian program is the outline that keeps us all going the same direction.
Yeah. Step-by-step programs, I think that's the key, right? Is it helps keep everybody in the same place during the process, right?
Yes, it does. And it is step by step because we want to target one direction or the other, but along the way it's customizable enough that we can make small adjustments, again, so it fits the producer profile.
Very good. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Dave, for all the information. As always, it's a lot to take in, but it's such an important, as you said, it's one of the big 3 major diseases in swine, respiratory, right?
Yes,
so
it is.
Very good. Thanks again for all the info.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
This is Sarah Mikesell with the Pig Site.